Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's live. I am really delighted. I'm very excited about this live today. It's a topic which is quite close to my heart for probably the wrong reasons, but it's all about tech. So my name's Amanda. I'm an inner calm coach, and I work with female entrepreneurs to help them navigate business so that they mentally. I'm really honoured to welcome today Anke. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I really look forward to this. Yeah, so I'm Anke Herman. I'm a business coach and tech geek, tech mentor, and I work with coaches, authors, experts, people who have a mission, a message they really want to get out into the world and want to build an online business to offer their services and basically serve more clients better without spinning their wheels like crazy, but find that the tech involved in making that happen is really from frustrating at best to outright scary. And so I'm basically guiding them through that process and, how to set this all up with clear, methodical, strategic, and have the tech sorted. So it's one less worry, so you can really focus on serving your clients. So that's basically what
I think it's people. Such a valuable service as well, because let's face it, if you're online, you can't avoid tech these days, can you? So it's, and I think that's the biggest hurdle we all have to overcome when we're sort of very prolific online. So why do you think it causes so many problems, tech, in terms of our perception of it, our use of it? What do you think drives that?
I think it's a combination of two things, really. I mean, one is, beliefs we have, things we believe to be true that I'm always delighted to dismantle. And the other part is that there is, between having an idea for an online offer, and basically we're talking, an online course or maybe an online program that has some live calls to go with it. It could be, I want to have a membership, or I want to do this online workshop, like any of these things. One thing is to have an idea, and then you might even take a program where somebody helps you structure this well. And so what to include and how to position it and how to market it. And then people go, okay, so what platform do I need, right? And when you sign up for a platform, next thing you know, it's, okay, do you want drip feed? And you go, what is that? Oh, put your API key here. And you go, what? Like, there is a whole thing in the middle of that nobody talks about, right? And that's where it's almost like a big valley, where you go, and when you go from here and you try and jump straight over there and you sort of try and skip that step, it becomes, because over here you don't know what the heck you're doing, because you've basically skipped a good chunk of the process. And people skip it because, first of all, they don't even know it exists. Because I think a lot of software platforms take this old sales rule, sell the sizzle, not the sausage. And I think they sell too much sizzle and don't actually ever talk about the sausage. So they really, I think that in my taste, they're taking it a little bit too far. So people who don't know their way around this whole area, they kind of don't even know that there's a whole part of the process. And then even if somebody tells them that there is something, they don't know where to start. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what the options are, what the implications are. And so you basically try and jump over that, and you're like, and then and I think everybody hates feeling out of their depth.
Oh yeah, definitely. While you were talking there, when you were saying about making that leap from there to there, and when you're over there, it feels really uncomfortable and so on. It so reminded me of my children, when we gave them tech to play with or have, as a computer or whatever, we would always, and it became a standing family joke, we would say when there was a little bit of frustration building because they couldn't quite work out how to do something or how to make it work, we'd say, have you read the manual? And the answer is always, no, why would I do that? And it occurred to me that actually you're the person that saves them having to read the manual, really, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll be the person to say, have you read the manual? But then also, and see, that's the thing. It's like, I will say, well, you don't need to go through the entire manual. Go to chapter 3.
Yes,
basically, it's that. But there is a lot to be said for reading the manuals. But I guess there's even another whole rabbit hole of frustration in there, because that's actually a lot of the time people say, well, yeah, I tried to read the manual.
Yes.
Right. But then the thing is, first of all, you don't really know. It starts off with people asking for the wrong things. Right? Like, if you don't know what you're doing, like the way you ask, what you type into Google or what you ask somebody when you're looking for a solution usually sets you off in the wrong direction. And I have some funny examples for that. And when you ask, whatever response you get from the person, some support person somewhere, or from Google even, or from a manual, you go like, oh, that feels like foreign language to me. So people are even reluctant to ask, because there's a sense like, well, and I want to understand the answer, and then I feel even worse. So that's no point, So I think there you have to remember, it is really like reading a book in a foreign language, and skipping over it isn't going to help. Like if you read a book in Spanish, and you start off and the third word, you don't know what it is. You go, oh, well, I'm going to kind of smooth over that and see. And then if you kind of understand all the rest of it, you can kind of, out of the context, often you can sort of, I think I know what it is. Sometimes you get it wrong. But then if you also don't know word 7 and word 8, you go like, I don't even know what this is all about. Right. Yeah. And I think with tech that happens, you can't expect to read this at the same pace as somebody who actually speaks that language. So you have to sort of come along, don't know what that is, have a look and go deep, and don't go further until you know what it actually is.
That's really good advice.
It does take time, and that's the other part of it. It's often about expectations. People who are new to all of this tend to have the idea that, oh, I should just pick this up, just like I pick up something that I know really well. Yes. And, when you're new, you just don't. And it isn't about being smart or not. I've tried flamenco dance classes, right? I missed the class. So it was second class I missed. And then for the third class, I came in and somebody explained to me what they'd done the class before. And I'm like, what? And she goes, oh, yeah, it was easy. We just done, and I'm like, what? And I totally I lost it. I missed basically the whole third class. I was overwhelmed because I didn't really get this bit and they already moved on. And somebody else had missed the same class and she watched this. Oh, it's tuck. Oh, okay. And then off she went. Yeah, that's the difference between being familiar with something and being new. And I think people don't really allow themselves the time to be a newbie, to be a learner, right? There's this sense like you should know this all, and well, you don't.
And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And we were talking off camera about frustration and how it builds up. And I think one of the things I witnessed, and it was at my sister's wedding recently, my dad who's in his 80s, he was trying to navigate the camera on the phone, which sounds to most people who are listening probably thinking, oh, that's simple. Everybody knows how to do that. My dad barely uses his phone, let alone the camera on his phone. And he was getting very frustrated. My 84-year-old aunt was helping him, which was hilarious because obviously she's more familiar. But I think the root of my dad's frustration was he is somebody who likes to understand things. He likes to know the mechanics behind why things work the way they do. And I think his frustration was rooted in the fact that he couldn't get to grips with it. Do you think that's what is the main source of frustration for people generally with tech?
Yeah, I think because it seems bottomless. It's a bottomless pit, right? Because there is a lot of stuff, no doubt about it, right? But at the same time, well, if you want to become a lawyer, there's a lot of stuff too.
That's a very good point, yes.
There's a lot of stuff too, and you don't expect yourself to be an expert lawyer, and we talked about this, it's just a funny example, especially with you. But it's such a classic though, if you think, hey, I want to be a real top shot lawyer, well, you go to law school, and then and how many years is that? And then you come out, and then you're still a baby lawyer. Then you need to get experience. So and it's the same with the doctor. Yeah, okay, plan 10 years of concentrated effort before you're any good at this, and I'm thinking, well, actually, tech's kind of like that too. So there's a lot of stuff and it keeps moving. And so it's basically a good chunky area of expertise. And for some reason, there is this expectation, but that you should know magically, without putting the effort in. And so many times people will go, but why, how do you know all of this? I'm like, you know what? I've been in this thing for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know something because it makes sense to me, because I remember when they first started in the 90s, right? And if you don't have that backstory, and I think it's a lot about expectations or how you think. And on top of it, our generation, we were never taught any of this at school. So everybody has really, some pick it up here and some pick it up there. And people know different things at different levels. And so any documentation, it's always really difficult. Who do you cater for? So it's quite often that you read something and I don't understand any of this, and then people don't think, let me find some other way of read, or let me find another source to read about this. They go, I must be really stupid. And this thing was supposed to be the simple thing. So I must be really thick, right? and that's when you can go down that rabbit hole. And then it just gets frustrated and you go like, oh boy, I just want a 25-year-old to do it all for me.
And that's in your book. I remember that line, can somebody else just do this for me? And I've definitely been there where I've thought this would be so much easier if I could just give someone else to do it. But part of me wants to understand it. I want to be able to, it's a bit like my website. I gave a web designer the project to do, but I want to understand how I can then change it, update it, and all of that. So I suppose some knowledge is important. But what was interesting, it brought to mind that, and you probably haven't been in this position, but I have certainly, is when you're online to somebody who's trying to resolve a tech issue for you, is they'll say something like, you just take your mouse over to the, the click off button, and you're busy thinking, where's the click off button? You can't find it. And I feel like halfway through the conversation, I feel as dumb as possible, because you do feel stupid because you're not getting it as quickly as you want to, rather than, their assumption is you probably are going to be slower at doing it. But it's also trying to get it's trying to sort of hone in on what's your best learning ability, how you best learn. So like you say about reading a manual, but for me, I always want them to say, can you just show me? Yeah. Can you just, and that's the way I learn best. And so for me, videos and those sort of things to learn about, what to do. Certainly when I was creating my program, I just watched all of the instructional tutorials just to see, and I watched them time and time again, so it really embedded. But I suppose you have to kind of hone in on what's your best learning style, I think.
Absolutely. And see, there's nothing even wrong with not reading the manual, right? I always say if you buy a new washing, when you buy a washing machine or like any gadget, anything, right? You'll have people, or you buy IKEA furniture, and it comes with a big manual, and you'll have like two types of people. The people who go through, first thing, get me the manual, read through, do whatever. And you have people who go, well, stuff it, let me just see. All I'm saying, if you're one of these, fair enough, you have a poke and you have a play around with it, but just don't waste your time when you get stuck. Yes. I think when you kind of get stuck, don't spend another few hours trying to figure it out when you obviously don't know how to figure it out. That's time to actually, check out the documentation, right? Because it's just so frustrating when it takes so long, right?
Yes, absolutely it is.
And for the learning style, it's really like, I think what really guides me is I've heard a definition of, I honestly cannot remember where I first heard it, so it's not my invention, but it really hits the spot for me. It says like learning and teaching, is connecting something unknown to something known. At the heart of it, that's all there is, right? And so the art of a good teacher is to find that known bit for you and hook something new into that. And then you go, I get it now. That's why you always find that, when somebody already speaks 3 languages, the 4th one is kind of easy because you have a lot of reference points to hook into. Whereas when you're new, like what happens for a lot of people with tech, especially, you know, in the times when a lot of people got shoved into this world at a point in time and at a pace that they didn't really choose. And they don't really have a lot of reference points. Right? So anything that gets explained, it's really quite hard for them to hook onto something where they go, oh, okay, so I get it now, you know, so there just isn't a lot, right? And to find your own way, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's, yeah, some people read, but I think video, I mean, I'm the Loom queen, like, you know, like video tutorials, how to do this. I think that is probably for most people one of the most effective ways of learning. Definitely.
I think when I was taught how to do Loom, and again, it was on a video, somebody showed me how to create a Loom video. And it's been so useful because when I've had problems, I've been able to record my screen and go, this is the problem.
Yeah, because that's the other part, like, you know, describing. That's why I always find when, you know, when you have your website hosting company, the support there, I sometimes think these people are angels. Like, you know, the support people, like, because sometimes I'm calling support and it's with the client and they sometimes show me like the conversation. I'm like, you know, because when you don't really know how the pieces fit together, you ask weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, so you will ask something that they think, well, no, that has nothing, like they won't know. That's nothing, you know, but you won't know what they don't and do know. So for them to actually figure out what's going on for somebody and then gently guide them through, quite often on chat, I think they deserve a manual and medal most of the time.
Yeah, you're right. Their patience is completely off the scale, isn't it? Because I've had a couple of conversations where, you know, it takes sort of 20 minutes and you suddenly go, oh, I get it, and you like put that on the chat. Sometimes it takes a while for the penny to sort of drop and for you to get into sync. But like you say, that must be kind of frustration on both parts.
But see, I mean, sometimes you have them also when they're not skilled. See, that's like what you just said before, that experience where I'm thinking, well, you know, they should have told you. Like, if they see that you don't find that button, well, you need to double check whether you're actually even looking at the same screen. You know, I think there you can also tell an experienced support person from somebody who just kind of bombards you with stuff. And then people usually walk away feeling inadequate when it's actually the support person who didn't do a good job.
Right. Okay. That's worth bearing in mind, I suppose, isn't it? That, because it's difficult, isn't it? When you're talking to somebody on a telephone about your screen and they're, you know, it's not always going to be exactly the same, like you say. So one of the things I wanted to draw attention to is about your book, which I think it's a great read. And when we connected originally for just like a conversation through LinkedIn, I was really captured by your storytelling ability, and that comes through in the book really well. I just love the way you've weaved that in, which is great. But one of the things that, and I know you've already mentioned one, but what I really liked about the book was the myth busting that you did. So talking about, you know, the things that we think about tech that actually isn't always the case. And I don't know whether you wanted to bring any out. I loved the one that I thought was about age and being a girl. I thought that was like, that's so me.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the thing with these myth busting things is like, well, ask me how I know. You know, I've had them, and that probably helps. You know, that I didn't grow up being the geeky tomboy. No, I did not. Like, I got into tech late, you know, reluctantly, actually, you know, and really have them. I've seen them crumble in front of me. That's why I know they're myths and they're not. And there's basically the age one. It's like, oh, I'm too old for this. Like, I didn't grow up with this. Young people have it so much easier. I have so many stories that prove that it's not an age thing. Like, I mean, literally, just think about, do you know somebody who's young and hasn't got a clue? You know, even with their telephones, you know, young people have very quick thumbs. I saw someone the other day, it's like, I don't know how she does it, but like super quick thumbs. But when they come into a mobile phone shop they haven't got, you can tell, oh, I just want internet. Like, they don't know how things fit together. They don't know how to create something. It's like, no, they can't be of help. So it's not. And you find young people who haven't got a clue, and you find older people who are really savvy at this stuff. And so age is like, no. And being a woman is an interesting one, because I grew up in East Germany. And look, you can look around the entire Eastern Bloc. And where I grew up, engineering courses at university and engineering jobs were basically taken up by women, over 50% of women, like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
They just forgot to tell us that girls weren't supposed to be technical.
Amazing.
Nobody told us, right? We just it didn't even occur to us that, like, why?
Yeah. Isn't that funny that social conditioning could have such a big impact on the workforce and the knowledge and that? It's just, like you say, it's a big issue if that's what you're brought up to believe.
Yeah. And the other part of it is quite closely related to that. Another big one is, well, to be honest, you don't actually have to be technical to deal with tech, because all the tech, if you look at it it's mostly, especially for an online business, it's mostly software platforms, right? So we're not talking about, like, I don't know, sort of some virtual reality programming. Like, no, it's just setting up an email marketing system or something, right? So it's platforms, and they're all made for normal people. Like, you don't actually need to be technical in that sense. So there's nothing, you don't need to calculate anything. You don't need to know anything about physics or science or anything, right? So it's I think that might have been true like 20 years ago. My first website, I hand coded that, so for you to have this look a certain way and be dynamic in a certain way, you had to hand code this. But these days you can build mobile apps without having to strictly code. So that's not really the problem. The problem is, again, that bit in the middle between your idea. So how do you take your idea and then actually put it into that system? Because it just requires thinking through your idea at a level of detail that people know nothing about. So it's not even, you don't even need, even if you were really good at tech, it still doesn't mean, it doesn't save you, and it's not what causes your problem.
I do like that. I think that might be my takeaway, that you don't have to be technical to be good at tech. And I think that's a real relief to hear, to be honest, because I would say the one thing that I'm a bit like a dog with a bone when it comes to trying to understand something. And again, that leads to frustration, which is what I've spoken about before. But the feeling of elation when you do actually get it and understand it. I mean, I remember being in a networking meeting like about a year ago, and I just learned how to send some formatted emails on MailChimp. I was punching the air. I was so pleased with myself. And I'm sure people in the room were thinking, is that it? Is that all you've done? But I honestly thought it was groundbreaking for me. So I guess celebrating your wins over tech, or not wins over them, but what you've been able to do it's just like building milestones, isn't it?
It's exactly that. And I think it comes down to orchestrating yourself little wins like that,
Yes.
And because I always say nothing's as addictive as progress. It's like when you have one issue, error, trouble, running your head against the wall after the other, anybody would get discouraged.
Yes.
And it's not a tech thing, it's a learning thing. In any area of expertise you look at, it's the same, and if you have little wins, we think, oh, hey, I managed to, and that's, but how do you get them? You don't go, oh, let me master MailChimp from the first to the last. No, you say, okay, how am I going to get this email? Oh, right, campaign. Oh, subject. Okay, you solve one little thing next, and then you say, okay, so how do I get rid of that funny default logo thingy, right? And then you find another little win, and next thing you have, hey, and the moment you have that little success, you think, now what else can I do with this thing? And then you kind of start, it's like when you try and explore. I always love to use Tokyo as an example. I've been to Tokyo and I know the sense of I don't know where I am in here. Even when somebody gives you a map, if you don't speak Japanese, well, that map's not much use to you. And the sense of, okay, I'm here. I know where my hotel door is. Let me just go over to the sushi place across the street and back. That's not getting lost or run over. For that's the win of the day. Tomorrow I go to the sushi place and then I go, let's have a look what's next door. And you slowly explore, and you slowly get familiar, and then you expand one little thing at a time. And every time, okay, that worked out well. And you pick up momentum, and you get more adventurous.
Yes.
Right? And I think it's like, if you look at tech as an exploration like that, just imagine somebody dumped you in Tokyo, and you just kind of slowly.
So it's slowly.
I think so, yeah. Because and it doesn't have to be slow. I think it just has to be small enough steps.
Yes.
For you not, because I always think like the moment it feels hard, you're skipping steps. And it's the same in dog training, to be honest. Like if your dog, I don't know whether you have a dog, but I've made this mistake. It was, I don't know, something I wanted the dog to do, right? And I just had trouble. He wouldn't get it. And I was like, I don't know. And then I saw somebody explain this. And I'm like, oh boy, I've basically lumped 10 steps into one. That felt, for me, all I do is just open the door, right? And I want you to sit there for a second. For me, it felt as if it was like just one little thing.
Yes.
But if you look at, for the dog, there was actually this guy was breaking this down. I'm like, okay, so I tried to skip 10 steps here. Obviously, that wouldn't work. And I think that's what we do when we're impatient. We try and sort of skip ahead. Yes. And so it's the smaller steps. It can still be fast, like it doesn't have to take a long time. But if the steps are small, that you go, okay, so that one's clear. So now I can explore the next one, And
that's a good way to approach it, because I think the mistake I've definitely made in the past is I've made assumptions about what I can do, or I've tried to do too much at once. So like you said about building the email campaign, you just I just try and do that and then do an automated sequence straight away. And it's like, oh my God, I'm losing it. So it's important, like you say, to just do bite-sized chunks that you feel comfortable with, and don't overwhelm yourself with it all, I guess. So we mentioned about wanting someone else to do it for us, or rather I do.
Yeah, one of my biggest pet peeves, very funny. No, I think because the thing is, I'm not even saying you shouldn't do it all yourself. Like when I work with clients, like the last thing I want is turn, unexpected people into geeks. Like it's not about that. I always think, like you said, like in the beginning, you need to know enough to be a good client for somebody.
Yes.
Right. So to first of all recognize when you see one. Second, not be ripped off by artists. Like to kind of also recognize when something doesn't make sense, and and simply being able to communicate where you don't ask for weird things, they can't misunderstand it, so we can actually talk, and to look at it like you would look at sales or accounting.
Yes.
You wouldn't just hand over, I really don't want to deal, like this money stuff does my head in, like here, have my bank details, you do it all. You wouldn't do that.
No,
and you'll be surprised how often people, you do it all. Here's my passwords. I'm like, wait, I don't want your passwords, and I think for me, for me to even start looking into helping people around tech, when I did coach training, I was focusing on pointing out to people that, what gets in the way of you building your business, it's like your inner stuff's going to bite you in the butt, right? If you're a people pleaser, that's going to come to haunt you. If you have money stuff, like I was looking at that inner work, right? Because I thought that's where the biggest leverage is, and that's where at the heart of it really, things happen. And then people would go, oh, I've got this website, but I don't know, somebody built it for me and I want to make a change and I haven't got a clue. Okay, where's it hosted? Well, I don't know. Okay, where's the domain? Well, I don't know what domain, right?
Yeah.
And then so you find the person who built the thing quite often would have built it with that intention of maintaining or creating a dependency. Yes. So quite often something happens, ta-ta, magic magic tech person no longer responds. And I literally, there was a local, so the guy who sold me my sewing machines, he says, oh, that kind of situation. And I'm like, okay, well, fine. We just build a new website then, and we just bring the domain across. Turns out he didn't even own his domain. The domain he had written on his car, on his shop windows, everywhere. Turns out the guy had actually registered it in his own name and not in the name of his client.
Oh my goodness.
And he wasn't the only case. So it happens quite a lot that when you say, I don't want to deal with it, you're really vulnerable for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's not in your best interest. It's in your best interest to understand at least how the pieces fit together, what you have, why it's there, and then how to say what you were saying before. Okay, not depend on somebody every time you want to make a change in a piece of text somewhere.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice, because I think that was one thing that I was looking for when I had my website built. I think it was my web designer that suggested that we have like a one-to-one after it was built, so she could show me the behind the scenes, the back end of it to a certain extent, and what I needed to be able to maintain myself. And we even did a Zoom recording, so I can refer back to that at any time if I forget what she said or my notes don't make sense, whatever. So
that's especially important. I would do like lots of little Loom video to do this, to do that, because it's not usually just one platform. For you to create a blog post, you need to have an image for that. Now go to Canva, do this, right? Yeah. So there's the problem is, the moment you have that call, it all makes sense because it's all fresh. But next time you want to do something, that might be 3 months down the line, and and I promise you won't remember what this was all about, or you forget one little step, and then all of a sudden nothing makes sense anymore. So to have those little Loom videos there to, for you to refer to when you need it is really quite important, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. It's just so many little learning steps, like you say, that you have to sort of take part. I just wanted to read something from your book, which I thought was really resonated with me, because it's very sort of similar to something within the coactive framework, which I mentioned to you off camera. And it's saying, it was about, and I found it really encouraging, because you said you're smart, you're creative, you're resourceful, you're a quick learner, you're not used to feeling so vulnerable and out of your depth, and it's frustrating. And I thought that really communicated your empathy for the learner, the person who's reading it, and that. And it's exactly in the same framework in Coactive. We approach our clients and we assume they're naturally resourceful, creative, and whole. And it's nice that you're coming from that same perspective, that your clients, they can so get this. It's just that they haven't learned what you've learned. And
Absolutely.
it's that acknowledgement, it puts you not on a level playing field, but it would make me as a client feel much more, I'm not the stupid one, I'm not the person that's dumb here. I'm just behind you in a whole sequence of steps in what I've got to learn. So, and I really was grateful to you for that quote, because it was just so. We need to wrap up soon, but I'd like to just share with the people who are watching, and if people are watching in delay, if you could just let us know in the comments, where can people find your book?
It's on Amazon. You just go on Amazon and it's, Taming the Tech Monster.
We'll probably put that in the comments. I'll put a link, or if you could put a link in the comments.
Or you can just go to ankerherman.com/book. It's there as well.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. Yeah, and I definitely recommend it. There's so many things in there. And like I said, the stories that you weave in, it just makes it I love those sort of books to read, because it brings the message across much more easily. And I think, nobody needs to be told now that storytelling is the way to, to sort of engage people. So, and I love the fact that you said that the whole process of tech and learning about tech it's more about a question of confidence rather than ability. And I think if anybody needs that sort of push to just learn a little bit more, this book is definitely the way to sort of start that process, I would say. And of course, if anybody wants to reach out to Anke, I'm sure you're open to that on LinkedIn. by direct message. And if you've got any further questions, you can put them in the comments or direct them to Anke. And so grateful to you, Anke, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with me and listening to my frustrations. And
yeah, but I think it's really interesting to see that, how everybody's in the same boat, and I think that idea of, if that quote, if you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right.
yeah,
And I think with tech, that's very much the case, because I always talk about that famous old washing machine. I've never heard of somebody who buys a washing machine, gets confused by all the buttons and goes, oh, this is all too much. No, take that washing machine away, take it back. I've not ever heard of anybody. Everybody looks at this washing machine. Some will poke around with the buttons, some will get out the menu, but everybody works off the assumption that I have what it takes to figure this out. And if you only take one thing away from all of this, that same thing applies to online tech as well. Like, how Marie Forleo says, everything's figure outable.
Yes.
And if you know that's true, you look at this whole thing in a different way.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point to end on. I think that's incredibly encouraging, like I said. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks for living what thing. It's been my pleasure. And if anybody has got any questions, like I say, drop them in the comments and let us know if you've watched on replay and if you've got any value out of this. We'd love to know. Thanks very much.
Thank you.